Hi, romance readers. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to a special episode of Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. In support of the premiere launch of HEA Reader Event in Indianapolis this November 2023, I am chatting with attending romance authors HAZEL James, MARIE JOHNSTON, and NORMA MARIE. We will discuss their work, and we will play Match Game Romance Fiction Edition. Enjoy, and be sure to like and subscribe. Welcome, authors, to Reader Seeks Romance.
Hi there. Hello.
So I previously chatted with HEA Reader Event co-founder Emily Silver, who I'm sure you're all familiar with. Here's an excerpt from our interview. Emily, you are the founder of HEA Reader Event that launches this fall in Indianapolis. How is it different from other events that connect romance authors and readers?
We think it's different. My co-host Tina Snyder and I, we have gone to about 6 or 7 signings together, and we've kind of taken little bits and pieces of everything that we like and dislike about them and decided to throw one big shebang in Indianapolis, where people come to us for once instead of us traveling to them. So we decided to host our own event this fall.
It's interesting you said that you've attended lots of events and there are things that you don't particularly care for and things that you do like. So which things do you not care for in a typical event that you're changing in HEA Reader Event?
Depending on what ticket level you get, you don't always get like swag bag kind of things. We're making it so everyone gets a swag bag. And I know it seems like a small thing, but as someone who loves going to signings and getting swag, I'm a swag fiend. So I want to make sure every reader who comes gets a swag bag and can take stuff home from all of the authors, whether it's a little bookmark or a koozie. We want everyone to have something from the event.
What were some of the things that you liked about events that you decided to include in HEA?
Our favorite thing is the cocktail hour the night before. I mean, you can never go wrong drinking and hanging with your favorite authors, so we're definitely doing that. Tickets are for sale on Eventbrite, and the cocktail hour is on Friday night, November 3rd, and it's $15. You get 2 free drink tickets, and that's from 7 to 9, so you don't have to worry about rushing. You can come in the afternoon. You don't have to rush in to get there. The signing is Saturday, so for $50, it's the VIP hour, so you get an upgraded swag bag, and that's from 11 to 5, and then general admission is $35, and you get just a regular tote bag. You still get swag, and that's from noon to 5, and that's on Saturday the 4th.
So you are all appearing at HEA Reader Event in Indianapolis. What are you most excited about?
I'm really excited to get to meet my assistant in person. She's super sweet. She's a reader I've just struck up a friendship with. I'm excited to actually get to squeeze her in person. It's a big family, and just some of us haven't actually met yet.
That is super cool. Norma Marie.
I'm excited by the lineup. There are so many amazing authors that I fangirl over, and this will only be my second official signing. So I'm really excited to meet new readers, meet readers that have already known about me, just the whole thing in general. It's just really exciting.
Awesome. Marie, what are you looking forward to?
I'm also excited to meet other authors, and this will be my second signing too. And I'm in the middle of North Dakota, so I feel really isolated sometimes, and I network a little bit online, but it'll be exciting to go somewhere because it's been years since I've even been to a writing conference. So I'm excited to get back out there again.
So HAZEL, you are best known for writing military romance. And according to your website, you are an Army veteran.
I am.
Yes. So first off, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
In what ways has your time in the Army informed and or inspired your romance novels?
So I was a journalist in the Army. I coming from that kind of background, in high school doing journalism and newspaper and yearbook and such, and then getting into that in the Army, it set me up for a career in writing. I had no idea that I wanted to write books until much later. And I foolishly thought, oh, I'm a journalist. That'll be easy. Completely different. It is much easier to take pieces of a puzzle that already exist and put them together than it is to actually build the pieces of the puzzle and then put them together. But it's been a great challenge. It's a great it's a great way to shake up my day-to-day. I mean, I'm a writer editor for my day job, so I don't get to be creative there as much. So it's nice to kind of have both sides of it. And then I started kind of accidentally, really, writing about my husband's journey with his PTSD diagnosis. And it just became this very kind of cathartic outlet. It's allowed me to connect with a lot of people who have experienced the same thing. Maybe, they don't have such a big support network. And I chronically overshare about stuff like this. And some people aren't comfortable talking about that. So it's gives them an opportunity to relate to somebody, which has been the coolest thing ever.
Your husband, did you meet your husband in the Army?
I did. I met him in the Chow Hall at Fort Lee, Virginia, because a friend of mine had a crush on him. And I was like, that guy? That one is the one you have a crush on? He was away at airborne school and had just gotten back to Fort Lee. Was not impressed. I was into blonde-haired, blue-eyed soccer boys in high school, and he was a brown-haired, green-eyed Texan. So it was not my cup of tea. But
that sounds like a romance novel in itself.
Well, so it kind of gets even more romancy. He asked me out. I said no because of the girl code. When your friend has a crush on somebody, you just and then eventually, I did a story on him, and he was a volunteer firefighter as well as being a soldier. And we hung out at the fire station for a whole week. And it started out that every time I would walk into the room, he would leave the room because he was mad at me for turning him down still. And we just progressively hung out more and more. We'd get back to the barracks at 3:00 in the morning after running calls and such. And then he left for Texas for leave for 3 weeks and came back. And that was February 20th. We started dating. We got married April 3rd. So 6 weeks later. So it's like super insta love. We actually just celebrated our 21st anniversary. So
congrats.
I figure it's working out pretty good.
Congrats. Now, was it your idea to do the story on him, or was it assigned to you?
It was my idea. We were able to, just kind of feel good pieces. And this is, shortly after September 11th. And so soldier, firefighter, first responder. It's ironically actually the worst story I've ever written. But that's okay. It all worked out anyway.
But the greatest love story ever.
Indeed.
You have to turn that into a romance novel.
So I put lots of bits and pieces of him and of our marriage in my military books. And even, I have a couple that are not military. But he's definitely in there. And friends of mine, family members who've read the books are like, I saw that. I know what that was.
Okay, Marie, you are a best-selling and award-winning author of paranormal romance with Shifters, Angels, and Vampires, and contemporary romance with oil businessmen, cowboys, and more. You previously worked as a microbiologist. How does your science background either help or hinder your romance writing craft?
I feel like it hinders it a lot. I hate to say, because I had no business background. I had no writing, no story structure, other than the Englishes I had to take in college. Mm-hmm. And one of those was technical writing, and none of it I felt like helped me. So it's been a long learning curve, but I do feel like hitting deadlines, and some of it's just part of my personality, is I will make a plan and hit deadlines and work every day. I do not write about the science field either. My husband keeps telling me you should, have the biowarfare scientist and the, FBI agent and what. I'm like, no, I wrote too many science papers to dive back into that world. So I stay away from it a lot, which seems odd because it was such a huge part of my life for a long time. I stayed at home after my third kid was born. I have 4 kids, and I did some part-time work as a med tech in the clinics around town. And then I was off for a few years. And then in 2020, I went back, and we didn't have many full part-time positions. So I got a part-time position. I thought this will be great. I can get up, move around. I need to socialize. But my kids were too young for a part-time job to just work, but I got so many plot bunnies being back in the lab that I think if I were still had a foot in that field, I probably would incorporate it a lot more into my writing. But since I'm out, I feel too disconnected.
What eventually led you to change from microbiology to romance writing? Was there, I would imagine it's not a linear path.
Right. Yeah. I was one of the ones I was going to write a book. When I write a book, I want to write a book. And I wasn't a stay-at-home mom who I needed something for myself. So it was better when I worked part-time, but when I wasn't, anything but cleaning house. I just wanted to do anything but clean house. And the kids are at home all day, so they're destroying it. So I started kind of dabbling in some writing, but I kept going to nonfiction. And I thought, I don't really know I don't have memoir stuff. I don't know what I would write as a subject matter authority on. And then I kind of thought about writing a book, and I just get so intimidated because I was a really big J.R. Ward fan at the time. And I was like, I can't write like this. And my husband was like, well, she had to start somewhere, so just write. I'm like, no, I can't do it. But, a writer, I've made up scenes in my head my entire life to kill time before we had smartphones. So I did finally just sit down and start. But what motivated it was his schedule. And I think it was when I was still working part-time, and I sat down with the schedule, and I had some kids getting older, and I still had some at home and toddler age that need you more hands-on. And I was looking at her schedule with, whatever sport they were in at the time, and his travel schedule and his work schedule. I'm like, I don't know when we're going to do all this. How am I going to do all this? Yeah. And so I saw a Good Morning America segment on Jacinda Wilder, and talking about self-publishing. And I thought, when I sat down and researched traditional publishing versus indie publishing, it just seemed like forever for traditional publishing. I was like, I don't have years. How many books do I have to write before I get? Yeah. And, I'm really glad I didn't know it was going to take that long to make a viable career anyway. Yeah. But I am very grateful that it pushed me in that direction. And I sat down and I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book. So I started it with the intent of making it a business.
Norma, you are a contemporary romance author who believes in love that heals. Your swoony novels feature heroes who are devoted to heroines finding their worth after trauma.
Yes.
According to your Instagram bio, you are an Army veteran.
I am.
Well,
high five.
Thank you for your service. This is the first time I've ever interviewed Army veterans who are now romance authors. So
I am one too. I'll just throw that in.
Oh, you are too?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Actually share a likeness in our stories because I met my husband, turned him down.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
You got to be, so that's a thing in the Army? Is that happening everywhere in the Army?
He wasn't my type.
Thank you. Thank you.
I met him a week later. We deployed to Iraq, and we were over there for 14 months, and he became my best friend. When he wasn't out on mission, we did everything together. Like, he was my best friend. And then we got home, and somehow the man convinced me to date him. And then here we are, 12 years next month, married with kids. And I still look back because I used to question whether or not he was straight.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, that's some friends to lovers story right there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, I love all these stories. Marie, did I miss something in your bio?
I didn't even know I didn't have it. I was in the Guard for 6 years, and then we met when he's in the military too. Now he's on his 31 or 2 years. But that is how we met when I was working full-time at a camp, and then he was on orders, and then we deployed together to Kosovo, and then I got out before the Iraq deployment started, and he got in on a couple of those. So, but I didn't turn him down at first, so I'm the standout there, I guess.
Well, thank you all for your service. Thank you to all of your husbands for their service. This is this is even more special than I expected. Norma, how does your experience inform or inspire your romance writing?
I never planned to become an author. My husband had deployed, my kids were super young, I had just lost my mother. I was in a very dark place, and I just had these two characters nipping away in my brain. And so I wrote out a 3,000 word prologue. I shut the laptop and I pushed it away. And then a year and a half later, my husband's home. He's like, what about that writing you were doing? Aren't you going to do something with that? Why would I? Like, I'm good. I had a crafting business that I was thriving at. Like, why are you trying to add more stuff to my plate? Like, I'm good. And then I had an author friend of mine who I was on their art team. She's like, your husband just messaged me and said you're writing. She's like, I need you to send me the prologue you wrote. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
No. No. Mm-mm. I got bullied into sending it to her. She's like, finish it. Excuse me. 3,000K prologue turned into an almost 80,000 word book.
Wow.
And I joined a writers group on Facebook, and the next thing I know, it's published, and I'm about to publish my 5th book this Friday.
Oh, congratulations. So when you're at an event like HEA Reader Event and you're meeting a reader for the first time, usually, because I've been one of those people, you'll get the question, so which book of yours should I start with? What's the first book I should read? So Marie, I know you've got you've got paranormal and you've got contemporary. So I'll allow you to answer one from each. So what's the one book that someone should start with from your paranormal novels and one from your contemporary romance? What would you recommend?
I would recommend for paranormal to start with the Dragon Shifters. I tend to gravitate toward my newer stuff. But it has more of my voice to where it's settled in now. I wrote it, I felt like a little more toward market, and I put the small town feel that I'm trying to be known for in it. And then on the contemporary side, I'd go back to my first small town. I did some Westernish stuff before that probably fit small town, but it's King's Crown. And I'm starting to bring those series more closer to home, but the world starts with King's Crown. And that's the same with my Dragon Shifters, would be the Dragon's Oath.
Got it. Now, you mentioned that you're trying to make more of a name for yourself within small town romance. So what led to that decision? Why are you honing in on small town romance? And you're like, this is what I want to be known for.
The lack of being able to travel a lot helps. And
that's a fair answer.
I listened to a talk a lot of people listen to by Melanie Harlow that talked about staying in your lane. And it really resonated with me because I did write so many different aspects of paranormal, different aspects of contemporary with some millionaires, some Western, small town. But I thought I wanted to bring it more closer to home. And I also wanted to set it in my state, since there's not a lot of literature in the state. And I think Montana's as cool as everyone else, but we're right next door. And so I felt like with small town, I could bring more of my voice and let it shine more because it's the world around me. So I was hoping that it would just be a nice, comfortable place to write in, and I could just bring it alive a little better than I could in other settings.
The state that you live in is North Dakota, right?
Right.
Okay. So what makes North Dakota unique from other states? What makes North Dakota towns different than other towns in the U.S.? Does it bring a particular type of romance or sexiness to the table?
it is harder to say yes when I do live here. I guess my husband and I are both small town kids.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to tap into is we're a very energy rich state. So we have a lot of blue collar industry with oil, we have windmills, we have coal. I'm forgetting something, I'm sure. We have refineries, gasification plants, we have wells all over a large portion of the state, and those families are collecting money. And so I don't know how the nitty gritty works, but I do know some people whose family kind of came into some oil money because of the oil wells. So I felt like it was a nice mix of, you get a little bit of the millionaire, but they're still going to be driving a pickup truck. It'll just be a really expensive one, but it's going to have dust all over it. The houses can still be really big and nice, but they're not going to be like the billionaire mansions in the city or the penthouse in the city. So I'm trying to touch on some of those more unique aspects. And it turns out, it feels like when I write it, there's actually not a lot of difference between I guess what you call wealthier families versus the more blue collar families. And there is in real life here, but I can kind of blend them a little better.
So Norma, what's a book that you tell new to you readers to start with?
The Power Player. It's a billionaire romance, fake dating, neighbors to lovers romance. And it's actually where I found my writing voice. And my first series is small town romance, and it was good, but I feel like I really found my voice once I started this new series. And I'm not picking one single lane. I'm kind of staying on the contemporary highway until I find where my voice is the strongest, because I'm still so new. So who's to say that, I won't do even better in sports romance or military romance, although my husband swears I'm gonna write our romance story, and I told him we're not, because that would be weird. And so I don't know where I'm on that highway, but I don't know which lane is my specific lane yet. But I feel like my strongest writing is in my billionaire series. So I want to steer them in that direction to get them into the series that I'm currently writing.
Okay. In finding your voice, does that mean that you experience what a lot of authors experience, which is feeling as if they're a conduit and the characters exist almost independently of you, and they're working through you and kind of telling you, hey, this is how you're going to write this romance journey? Is that what that feels like?
That's all of my characters anyways.
Oh, okay.
They all scream at me 24/7. I mean, I may only have 5 books written, but I have 32 planned. And every single voice is in my brain saying, when is it my turn? So as far as finding my voice is really finding my writing style and finding what, the best way for me to write. And because my husband was in Korea for almost 2 years recently. And so I was in the very beginning stages of my writing career when he left. And so my schedule went from knowing what I was doing and when I was writing to homeschooling my kids and having to wash the dishes and do the laundry and pick up after the pets. And when am I supposed to write? So my schedule went completely haywire. He's since come home, and now I'm finding that voice again, that drive again, and a schedule, really, because I still homeschool my kids. And I still have to wash the dishes and do the laundry, but now I have someone backing me up when I don't do those things.
Gotcha. Okay, Hazel, what book do you recommend to new to you readers?
I usually try to get a sense of what they like to read. Try to match, what I have available to something that they might be interested in more. If they gravitate more towards angsty stuff, I will tell them to read Guarding Shadows. It's a book that I co-wrote with one of my best friends, Allie Stiles. She has a standalone series, so each book you can read independently. But that is definitely more angsty. It's a military rockstar crossover. So we kind of combine both of our knowledge bases. She's a musician as well. So if they like angsty, I'll push them in that direction. If they like rom-com more than anything else, then my book Checked Out is definitely one that they would enjoy. Just a super lighthearted escape from reality. But then otherwise, I mean, Chaste is my first, that's my heart book, I feel. As previously mentioned, you find your voice, and you kind of get into the groove. And that book was the start of a lot of great things for me. So, and it's about a storm chaser. They always say to write what you want to read. And I wanted to read a book about a storm chaser. I just couldn't find one. So I wrote one, and that is kind of a unique thing. Did so much research for that. So it's definitely one that has a piece of my heart and seems to, have some pretty good feedback.
You mentioned researching storms and such. Now that's a good question for the rest of you. Was there a particular novel that you wrote that required more research than others? And what was it on? And what did that research process look like? Would you like to continue on storms, Hazel, or was there any other novel that there was more research?
Chase took the cake with research because it was the storm aspect of it, and then also the hero was a PJ, a pararescueman. So much research on all of that, the terminology, just the vibe. When you're deployed, there's a vibe. You have to kind of speak to that. So lots of watching. What was it? I think a National Geographic. Lots of that, and then just lots of following newsmen in Oklahoma City and learning terminology.
Marie, any research come to mind?
Well, I did one just recently, and it's going to be on a book that's released in August, and he was going to be a horse trainer. I grew up like rural, but we didn't have horses, and I rode horse a few times after I met my husband, but otherwise I prefer cats. I prefer animals I can carry. Not the ones that can carry me. And the horse world is massive, and it's so specific, and it was narrowing. It was like figuring out, okay, what does he train? What kind does he train? How does he train? Where does he? It was every stuff that I didn't expect to be so hard to answer, but there were so many facets and paths I could go down in narrowing it, that it boggled my mind. And there was a set of duets that probably the only other thing I did a lot of research on, and I ended up abandoning this. They weren't duets, they were novellas. And I think I've unpublished them. Was when I first heard about Fleet Week, I thought, that's amazing romance fodder. Like, that has romance stories written all over it. So I tried Fleet Week novellas, but I come from the Army side of the military. Wrapping my head around the Navy jargon just blew my mind. And I was going to write the third novella, and I just quit. I was like, I can't do this. And I was interviewing my husband's really good friend who was in the Navy, and it was just such a different world. I couldn't get my head around it.
Norma, research.
Okay, so the one that comes to mind, like for the one I did the most research for, is the one that's releasing on Friday. My heroine is a foster kid who becomes a social worker. And I know next to nothing about social work. Gotcha. Like, I know what everyone knows about it, but like actually diving in and finding out like the classes that she had to take, and like their yearly seminars and all these things that they do. And so I had to really dive deep into the research for that, especially because she was going to be transferring states in the novel. So you can't just take your license she's from Oregon, he lives in California. You can't just take your license from Oregon and go practice in California. So I had to do research on how she'd be able to transfer to California. And like, it was, I think I had like 30 tabs open at some point, because like one place would take me to another place, and then this place would point me to this place. And my ADHD was showing all over the place with all those tabs, because when I went to close them, I'm like, did I even learn anything? So I would probably say The Reformed Player is probably, that one really had me diving deep on some research into social work. And I have to say that they they have all my praise, because what they go through, and for as little as they're paid, they are, wow.
Wow, that was very ambitious of you to because you could have eventually just been like, you know what? She doesn't move anywhere. They're all in the same state. Like, you could have taken the easy way out and you'd be like, oh no, they're just all in this one state. But you stuck by having, this interstate licensing situation.
They wouldn't let me keep them in the same state. My characters control my story. I have I am just the person who documents the accident as it happens. Mm-hmm. That's it. It comes, I write it down. They completely control my story. So even if I wanted them both in California, they would have taken that and just given me a complete plot hole, and I would have to go and rewrite it again anyways.
Marie and Hazel, do you also listen very carefully to the characters as you hear them in your minds? Do you ever try to go against them?
Okay. Doesn't work well for me, but yes. So I found when I get stuck, or if I just can't move on, it's because I'm doing something that I want to have happen and not listening to what the characters want. And there's a scene in Chased, I won't say which one it is, but there is a very specific scene where the heroine was like, nope, this happens, this very specific thing. And I'm like, well, that was not anywhere. I'm not a plotter. I'm more of a pantser, but I do have certain ideas of what little scenes that I want to have happen along the way. I just don't know what happens in between them. Mm-hmm. And that was not one that was on my radar. And it was very much, we have to have this happen. And as soon as I started writing it, everything just, kept on going. So wow. I've learned to listen.
So that's really at the heart of writer's block, is what you're saying.
For me anyway.
But it makes sense though.
I'm not listening.
Marie, do you listen to your characters or do you give them sass?
I probably give them way too much sass. I am a pantser too, so I never thought of it as listening to the characters, and I probably should. But I do know I need time, and that's to let the story unfold. So if I'm pushing to just hit word count some days, just to get, I need 3,000 words, and I'm not quitting until, but I can tell if I've gone off track. And so that's a good sign. Once I start getting that feeling, I know it doesn't matter what the word count is. I don't want to edit all of that. Yeah. So it's just to back off and just let it unfold like the movie. And I suppose that is kind of when the characters talk to me and tell me the way it should happen.
It must be kind of trippy sometimes though, because realistically it's coming from you, but it's coming from like a higher part of yourself,
it's a very weird feeling to be writing and to literally say, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen, or no way, because it is something that I've created, but there's a point in every book where, if you start out with like a celebrity in mind, like, looks wise, or just, some sort of little visual muse, there's always a point along the way where that muse goes away and you hear your character's voice, and it's a very distinct voice. And it's them, and it's just this imaginary friend living in your head.
Yep.
Wow, it's like
exactly that
inner romance wisdom just rises to the surface and takes over.
There it is.
Can you tell me, Norma, about your most recent release?
So The Reformed Player is book 2 of the Billionaire Players series, and it follows Colton and Austin Jane, and it is a second chance romance where the hero and heroine are already married. So it's
to each other, right?
Yes, they're already married.
Okay, for a minute, I was like, wait. Okay.
So it's a second chance. From what the feedback I've been given, it's angsty, it's emotional. They fell in love with both the characters. They did not want the book to end. They're really excited to see what's coming. It's probably my favorite book that I've written to date.
That's quite an endorsement. That's wow. It sounds. Now, what would you say the heat level is?
I don't know how to rate heat levels, but according to my readers, the advanced readers that have read it, can't speak all of a sudden. 2.5 to 3 chili peppers.
Doing a chili pepper. meter, huh? Okay. So I would say probably this is out of 5.
Yes.
I would say probably sexy.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Hazel, what do you have coming up?
The book I'm working on now won't come out until next year, but it is it's got forced proximity. It's lovers to enemies to lovers, kind of people who were in a relationship in college and come back together 6 years later. It's I don't know if it's going to be classified as a rom-com or if it's I honestly don't know. I'm going to rely on other people to figure that out for me because I'm just the note taker. Like Norma said, I'm just here to document. It's turning into be one of my favorite projects. I really enjoyed the writing. I feel like it's probably my strongest writing.
Okay.
It's a whole lot more research because apparently I like to do this to myself, and I don't know with me, Marie and Norma, if you experience this. Half the time the research doesn't even get into the book, but I have to still know it, and it has to be in my brain so that I can make other decisions. It's really annoying. It takes a lot of time, but I'm pretty proud of this one.
Cool. Does it have a title?
It does. I don't think I can say what it is yet, but
Okay.
Actually the idea for the book came from the title. I was literally walking across the parking lot and this title dropped into my head. I'm like, surely that title exists already because it's too good. It's too good not to. And I went to Amazon and it did not exist. And I was like, well, okay, then I guess I know what I'm writing.
Wow. And it's coming out in 2024?
Yes.
Okay. Winter 2024, spring? When do you think?
That I don't know yet. I'm hoping spring, but if not, fall.
Okay. Exciting. Heat level, we'll stick with the chili pepper.
I'm assuming like a 2 to 3. I tend to be more of a medium spice author. You know, I do have some scenes, open door scenes, but not. I wouldn't classify myself as a spicy writer.
Okay.
I have enough to be effective.
Marie, what do you have coming up?
Or the one I mentioned from this summer is going to be a book 1 of a new series, and that's coming out in August. And it's still in my oil world because I did Oil Kings, and I sat down and I figured out titles, and then I was doing another series that was going to be in the same world, not quite a spinoff. And I was trying to think of the series title, and as I hadn't come up quite with, I had a different last name, and then somehow I paired an old family name is Baron, and I was like, I can go with royalty. And I can do Oil Kings, and I can do Oil Barons, and I can do Oil Knights, and I can do Oil Bishops, and I can do Oil Dukes. So I'm on Oil Knights, and that'll be book 1 in the same kind of, some kind of oil wealth that is tied to all the families. And that's coming out in August. And that is the one I write about a 2.5 to 3 chili pepper to a sexy book. And that one is, it was really fun to write because I love second chance romance. I just love writing them. I love reading them. And this one is a little bit different because I've done a lot of the Marriage on the Brinks ones. But this one is it almost had a runaway bride aspect to it in the beginning. It was sort of a runaway bride because she found out her dad was paying him to marry her for reasons. And so they had that breakup. And then 10 years and a few bad relationships later, she's having drinks with her sister-in-law, commiserating over horrible exes and kind of how they never get their due. And they're social media stalking them and find out he's really down on his luck. And she had family money and she wanted to start a rescue, and but she has her full-time job because she doesn't have that much family money. And so she'd need like a rescue manager, and he really needs a job. So she drunkenly hires him, but he doesn't know it's her until he shows up and finds out she's his boss. So that was really fun to play with, that beginning. I love writing beginnings, are my favorite of the books. But that beginning was probably the most fun.
I am going to read these romance fiction situations, and there's going to be a fill in the blank. And hopefully you will match with someone else in the group. You get a point if you match with anyone. If you match with me, you get double the points. So I have 5 romance fiction scenarios, and let's see if anyone matches. It's not usual that there's a lot of matching. So usually someone will win with just 1 point, but that winner could be you. Okay. Penelope read a historical romance novel set in 19th century England about a pirate who falls in love with a stowaway on his ship. Penelope gave the book 3 stars on Goodreads and commented, "The story would have been more romantic if there had been an only one blank scene." Pirate, stowaway, only one blank scene would have been more romantic. Let's see. On a pirate ship. Only one bed, only one walk the plank scene. Now, how would that have played out romantically?
Very creatively, carefully, probably.
So are we talking about a sex act on the plank?
Possibly.
Wow, that is going to require a lot of coordination.
Little danger.
I don't know.
A little bit.
I don't know if they had that back then because they had scurvy on those pirate ships. I don't think you'd be in top form to be able to do those acrobatics. I said cabin. You both said bed. So you each get 1 point each. So I'm going to make a note that Marie gets 1 point and Norma gets 1 point. All right. Wow. We're off to a good start. Lauren's Paranormal Romance Book Club read a steamy novel called Planet Pleasure, featuring an alien with 3 blank.
I gotta look up how to spell a word.
Oh, well, that means that we're probably not going to match because mine is not. Oh, wait a second. Now that you said that, I think I'm going to change my answer. Did you write tentacles?
I did.
Now, I was going to say beans. Eggplants. Well, now, do you mean that as a euphemism for eggplant?
I do.
Oh, okay. So actually, then the peens, I'll accept peen and eggplant. And I did tentacle because you said you did not spell it. So I actually helped you out in a way, Marie, because now you got double points. So Marie's got 2 points now. Okay. And Norma's got another one. And Hazel now has 1 point because she matched.
I'm on the board.
You're on the board. Okay. Well, this is one of the most quickly moving, point accumulating game I've ever played. Number 3, according to Book Talk, the must-read romance is an Amish erotica novel titled Buggies, Barns, and Blank. Let's see. Remember, Buggies and Barns, alliteration. Okay. Is everyone ready? Okay, let's see it. Who's got BDSM? Whoa, actually, these are really good answers. Booties, that's a good one. Boners.
That's a good one.
Oh,
Yeah.
and bonnets. Oh, well, none of us match. Tony wrote a grumpy sunshine rom-com between a firefighter and a candle maker, but his editor thought it would be much funnier if the firefighter fell in love with a blank instead. Okay, let me know, is everyone ready to go on that? Did anyone have trouble spelling anything? Okay. Let's do our reveal. I said pyromaniac, arsonist, baker, nurse. Now, this is where we take it to the judges. Arsonist and pyromaniac. Do we think that matches? Okay. So that means that Hazel, you get double the points because you matched with me. So that leaves us at, okay, you just got +2. Okay. So Hazel right now is at 3. Marie is at 3. And Norma's at 2. Ooh, we only have 1 left. Ooh, let's see how this goes. A group of authors who write cozy small town romances published an anthology of short stories titled Tiny Towns, Extra Large Blank. Extra large blank. What could that be? Let's do our reveal. I said extra large peens, extra large condoms. Okay, wait, we're gonna have to take that one to the judges. Lumberjack, tiny, extra large lumberjack. That has some potential. Extra large hearts, you know. That actually would be probably what that anthology would be called. So now we have extra large condoms. If there's extra large condoms, that means they have extra large peens. So do the judges think this counts? It counts? Okay. So that means you matched with me, Norma. So that means you get another 2. Oh, wow. Does that, let's see. I'm going to have to add this up. Norma has 4 and the others have 3 and 3. So Norma, you just win by 1 point. There you go.
Condoms for the win.
Right.
Condoms and peens for the win.
Thank you, Hazel, Marie, and Norma, for joining me here on Reader Seeks Romance. I look forward to meeting all of you in person this November at HEA Reader Event.
Likewise, thank you.
Yes, very much.
Thanks
so.
for having me.
Thank you
You're
for
very
having me.
Nice to meet everyone.